Okay, so as Chris already said and introduced me, I am Mateusz Stefańczyk, and on daily basis, I work as Angular team leader in the House of Angular. And today we're gonna talk about the Angular 20 and what's new here. And before I even dive into the presentation, I have to calm you a little bit down because this version specifically is not so rich in terms of the extra features we used to over the recent releases, where each release contains really something huge for the Angular, for Angular resilience, things like the signal, resources, a new control flow, SSR improvement, hydration, and so on. There was like plenty of new features. Each of them was breaking. So no, this version probably wouldn't be like that if Angular team is not hiding anything special in front of us. Then they mainly focus on some developer experience improvement, on stabilizing what's already have been done so far, because there was like a lot of work done in the recent releases. They need to stabilize it right now, polish everything what have been done to make the next step in the creating some extra new features for us. So before I just dive to the presentation, I would like to share with you some awesome open source project which can give us an insight how this process of polishing, stabilizing the stuff is going on. It's built by the community, and it's, let me share the screen maybe without talking. So this is an awesome website, angularcourses/Canus, where you can see what is the status of the Angular packages. So we can see there at the very top of the page a pretty nice and descriptive legend where we can see what the particular color means, whether the package is experimental, developer preview, stable, deprecated, or even removed. And if we scroll down, we can select what time span of the particular features changes between which version changes we want to observe. So I pre-selected already before the presentation version 19, but you can even track how the particular package has been changing from version 13. So it's going even a few years back. You also can like research your package you are specifically interested in. I just type resource or res to see what is the status of the resource API. So right now I will focus on the changes between version 19 and 20 to show you what actually have been polished and make the stable one. So if we scroll down, we can see that the signal effect, which is already a huge thing because effect is probably one of the last signal-related stuff which were introduced for us pretty early, wasn't stable so far. So in the version 20, we can expect it to become the stable. Also, with i18n support will become stable. Some huge things are very important packages in terms of the SSR becoming stable. There is like still a lot of things to do, but already 3 of them will become stable in the upcoming version. Also 2 new hooks like after every render, after next render will become stable. What is pretty important probably for all kinds of the projects which has been developed in Angular in the recent years, RxJS interrupt became stable because most of us have been working on observables. And if we want to migrate to a new way of reactivity, we need to use these interrupts, or just we will need to rewrite entire, I don't know, reactivity to the signals somewhere in the services. What is even for some project not possible right now due to time cost and so on. So it's great that these 2 functions actually became stable already. And also something I am very happy about is with incremental hydration. That's the great feature for SSR, and it also will be stable in this version. Link signal, which I believe a lot of us already are using on production maybe, will become stable, but also what is pretty interesting, that all structural directives, maybe not all of them, but those most famous for us, like ngif, ngfor,ngswitch, they will become deprecated. And right now, whenever we will be utilizing them in our project, we will be getting kind of the notification or warning about this one. So I strongly encourage you to visit this website and check what is stable, what is developer preview. Even if you will have some idea to use something on the production already, you can go there and check what is the status of the package, whether you should it on the production, or maybe you should wait a little bit, because in the upcoming version it will be finally stable, so maybe it's worth to wait. And this project is created by Jérôme Grignon, and I strongly encourage you to follow his work on the LinkedIn, Twitter. He's a really passionate person regarding the Angular. He created this great open source project. He's attending and organizing some conferences also on daily basis. He shared a lot of insightful information about the Angular. And it's just a worth person to follow if you want to be up to date with Angular and cool stuff like that, which I shared with you. Okay, so now I will go back to my presentation. So I showed you that kind of the work which might not be visible has been done and needed to be done to stabilize what we have been using for weeks, months even. But there will be also new stuff, new cool stuff in the Angular. It's not like there will be nothing. So there will be new API for ng component outlet, which we widely use for dynamically creating the components. So far, we always have to do it manually by destroying the container, recreating the component, manually binding the inputs, destroying component, and so on. Right now, we will have more declarative way of doing this one. So whenever we use ng component outlet, we can define which component should be rendered here dynamically. Whenever my component wouldn't be null, it will be rendered. We can pass as a parameters what kind of the input it accepts, what kind of the content nodes it accepts. So if it has some kind of the content projection within itself, we have a possibility to pass it as a parameter. We can pass also an injector and outputs there. Yeah, I will send the link. I will send the link to the person. Sorry, I was reading the question. Right, so there is more declarative, simpler way to dynamically create component without bothering of creating and destroying the container and so on. Everything will happen under the hood. But also, if we prefer this manual way of dynamically creating components, having more control over the process, there will be new improved API of create component method. So it will similarly accept as a first parameter the component, but as a second parameter, we can pass the options. And here we can define the bindings, and using predefined methods like input binding, two-way binding, output binding, we can define here what should be the input value, what should happen after the output emits value, what should and how should two-way data be bind. But also we can dynamically apply directives to our dynamically rendered component. And similarly to components, as a first parameter, we pass the directive that should be applied, and then we do entire binding of the values for this directive, what should be the input, and so on. So here we can see comparison of two new ways, like more declarative way, and here improved manual way of creating dynamic component. Okay, so we also get some asynchronous redirect function. So far, the redirect tool couldn't execute the asynchronous, couldn't resolve the promises observables. Right now, it will be possible. We can return an observable here, which will resolve to URL tree or just the string. And as we can see on my example, I utilize some auth service to verify whether user is authorized. And whenever he is authorized, I can redirect him to the home or login. Also, there is an improvement in HTTP resource. So right now, whenever some signal that HTTP resource depends on change, the request will be performed automatically, right? So as you can see on my example, my HTTP resource depends on a few signals. It depends for the URL param on the market ID. It's also depend on the parameters like sort options, search term, but also headers depend on the signal, which is my header. And right now, whenever any of them change, this will be triggered. Also, what is pretty exciting that under the hood, it's utilizing the HTTP client, so we don't have to bother regarding our interceptors and so on, whether they will be triggered. So entire middleware around the HTTP client will work exactly same way. So if we make a request, we have the interceptor. This interceptor will be executed when we utilize HTTP resource to fetch our data. Also, the resource itself has been extended to predefine the default value, and I think it's a valuable option, since if we are using the resource to manage our state, because maybe we have very small component, a small slice of data is needed there, we don't utilize any state management, it's always great to have some default value predefined. So everyone who has been working over the years with any kind of the state management knows that initially we predefine the default values, and then when some actions happen, we override these default values. So same will be for the resource. It will have some kind of the default value, but whenever its value change, it will be override. So far, it was undefined always. Right now, we'll have a possibility to define the default value. This is kind of the change from the Angular 19.2, so somewhere between 19 and 20, but I decided to say about it because my next slide also will follow up to this. So now we have a possibility to utilize template literals in the template. So in the past, whenever we wanted to join our variables properties with some string, we always have to use this plus string, plus value, plus string, and so on. But on the TypeScript side, we always could utilize these literals, string literals, and just use the $sign and execute and bind our properties, create pretty flexible way the strings. Right now, it's also possible in the template. But there is something extra in terms of the template literals. There are template tag literals. And what are the template tag literals? So these are kind of the options which we utilize to execute over our template literals. So as you can see, I have defined the method, which is called greet. And as a method is executed at the template. So we can see that we call this method pretty different when the casual methods, because we put it in front of our template literals, and how it will be called and executed, and what will be the parameters of this method. So as a first parameter of these methods, we'll get the array of the strings. And this array will contain pure strings we are having in our template literals. So for us, it's like hello, comma, good, and exclamation mark. And as a second parameters, we will get the data, second and third, and maybe fourth, depends how many properties we will be utilizing over our template literals. And in our case, it will be name and greetings. So you can see here we have the pure strings, then we have what we actually binding and utilizing across of template literals. And a lot of us might see that it's maybe very similar to the pipe. What is even the use case of this one? First difference between this and pipe is the fact that here we have direct access to all of the component properties. And this kind of the method wouldn't be probably widely used, but there might be a scenario when you would like to manipulate your text based on certain conditions. and you don't want to hard code it in the template directly, for example. Also, it's a great thing for sanitization. So there will be use cases, but probably it wouldn't be so widely and common used. The next small improvement is exponential operator. So far we couldn't perform this kind of the math operations in the template. We always had to use some method or just use the math class directly in the template. Now we easily, using 2 asterisks, can multiply our value by some specific number. The next thing, which is widely used right now on the TypeScript side of our components, but was not possible in the template, is in keyword. So right now we can utilize in keyword to check whether some property exists in scope of our object, and based on that we can display something or hide something. So we can utilize it as a Boolean condition within an if. Also, we can utilize it to bind the classes to our HTML elements. So I think very useful and nice improvement. There is also keep alive support for fetch requests. So this is kind of the feature that might be very useful whenever you want to track some specific analytics. So let's say you want to track from which page or on which page user decided to leave your page application, and track it, send it to the backend to have kind of the overview. Maybe people are getting stuck somewhere during the process of creation, whatever. So right now, whenever people just leaving your website, this request might not finish, but they will already leave and it will be break. So by keep alive true, you will make sure that before they unload and leave the application, this request will be executed and finished. So also very useful feature. Okay, so there is a bunch of the smaller improvements. So there is next step towards zoneless. So right now, whenever we will be creating our application using Angular CLI, it will recommend for us to go directly with zoneless. There is improved type checking support for host binding. So whenever we utilize host binding, the type checking will be much better. We will get the notification about uninvoked track functions. So as I showed you, the structural directive of ng4 will be deprecated, and using the ng update, it will automatically migrate our structural directive to new control flow. But our directives contains, like specifically ng4 contains a lot of track by functions, and these functions will be uninvolved right now, so we'll be notified post migration regarding this one. And also Angular will stop producing ng-reflect attributes, which were indicating about some kind of the Angular bindings on the element, which will decrease the size of the bundled application on the dev mode specifically. What we are still waiting for, because we expected that maybe this version will contain signal forms, another big signal-related stuff we are all waiting for. Unfortunately not. Within this version, we will not see signal forms, so we still need to wait. I read that this kind of the API being polished and improved right now, so maybe we can expect it in the next version. We will see. The next hot discussion, very warm discussion we had between 19 and 20 was about the selectorless in Angular. It's also not being released within this version. From that, what I saw, it's still being under discussion. You can participate discussion in all kind of the RFCs, not only regarding this feature, but as usual in Angular, there is a RFC where we can participate, share our thoughts, which I strongly encourage you to join these discussions, share your opinion about this approach and how you will see that. And also recently I read that within upcoming weeks, we can expect experimental VITEST support. So this is something what already has been announced that will be in experimental. provided for us, so probably matter of weeks. And that's it. So thank you guys for this presentation. So as I said, a lot of work has been done to provide stabilization to the features we already love to make the next step for upcoming great things.
Okay, Matt, thank you very much for your presentation. That was really solid dose of knowledge. And now it's time for our Q&A session. So if you still have some questions, be sure to ask them now. And let me look if there is already, there is already one. I can see how to use template literals with inline templates.
Yeah, that's the good question, yeah, because we define the template using exactly same sign as we using to use the template literal. And I'm going to be extremely honest, I don't know because I didn't test it yet, yeah, so I will need to take a look, but I am completely sure they just cover it somehow, right? So we'll see, but I can't imagine it will not work with the inline templates. I don't know whether you, Chris, maybe have some idea.
I don't know either. This is kind of tricky, as you said, because these backticks are used for both things. Maybe you can escape them somehow. I don't know. We just have to check. All right, so there is another one. I'm not really sure we will be able to answer this one, but maybe do you know something? Are there any news on the updated Angular style guide?
Not sure. I didn't encourage every kind of the news. What I only Minko, sorry, I was reading something. Said that he really is writing like extremely long blog posts. It's about 11 or 12 pages already on his site. So probably there will be a lot of insightful, cool information from his side. I don't know whether he will cover like some Angular style guide. He was like sharing some image of the page, what we think that might be, and so on. Maybe it will be some kind of the updated style guide, but like covering stuff, searching stuff for this presentation, I didn't encourage some kind specific mention regarding the fact that the entire style guide will be updated during this release.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. And there is a couple more. So the Angular team, Minko, used a demo to show hydration with SSR with black and white and color components. Maybe this has public access for use in demonstrations. So I'm not sure if you remember that one, Matt, but they indeed used something like that for the demos. Not
I don't know whether there is like somewhere. It was. I even was attending a meetup with him, and I had talk on this meetup as well. It was in London when he was like sharing that one. It was like partial hydration, probably, where he specifically has been hydrating based on certain conditions, the specific components, and it had a great visualization when the component not hydrated has been gray, other have been in color already or just became colorful. But whether there is public access to this one, I'm not sure. We'll need to take a look.
Yeah, maybe we can try to find it, and if so, we can publish it on our social media if it's available. All right, so let me get to another one. So any idea if we will be getting to experiment with signal forms in V20?
Not sure whether we will be getting to experiment, but if someone is already interested, probably there is a branch where the signal forms are being developed, and you can access this branch, clone it to your local machine, just install this specific version of Angular and play around with the signal forms. That what I saw some people are already doing and providing the Angular team with valuable feedback, doing it actually this way. So there is a way to play around with the signal forms already.
Yeah, that's right. And we have one more. Is Zone.js optional in V20?
Yeah, that's what I think so, right? If they are just during the creating the new app with Angular 20 in the CLI, just recommending us to go zoneless, I think we can treat it as optional.
Okay, so there is 2 more, so let it be the last one. So should we absolutely use signal store in Angular 20? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a very valuable question. And even we each other and with other guys in the house of Angular, we had this talk like whether with the really full support of resources and well granularly defined resources in scope of some file, let's say call it service or whatever we want to call it, whether we still really need some state management library anymore. Because in the past, it was like we could use services with behavior subject, but after some time, it's became mess. But here with resource API, that seems more clear for me, easier to maintain, read, and so on. So I still use the signal store in my project, but I can imagine the project without the signal store. So there is no like something you absolutely don't use signal store or you must use signal store. It's case by case because signal store still have plenty nice features where he can encapsulate everything within single file, single declaration, multiple properties, state management. Right now, I know they are trying to bring, or even in the upcoming version, I was reading about it yesterday, like event-driven Redux-like signal store state management, right? So if some people like to work based on the events or just need to manage them state based on the events, so there is still use case. But I think from version to version, it will be matter of discussion.
Yeah. And that's kind of funny because I feel like we are falling into the same set of questions like we used to do in the past for the global NGRX store, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like, you know, whether to use it or not. Yeah. So, but this was our progress.
There was global, then was the component store. So maybe we should get rid from the global to component, now to component global to signal store, now maybe to resources. So we are constantly moving, right? And just changing our approach all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And let it be the last one. Any news about the Selectorless?
Yeah, so as I said, it wouldn't be released in this version. This stuff is still under discussion, and Angular team strongly encouraged to take part within an RFC, discuss, share your thoughts, and be proactive in terms of the future of this feature.
All right. So I guess that's it for our Q&A session. So again, Matt, thank you very much for the great presentation, for being with us today, and I hope to see you on the future events. So
yeah, I will be replacing you in the upcoming meetup. So I will be the MC this time. So see you soon, guys. Thank you, Chris, for guesting me today. Have a nice day, everyone, and enjoy your upcoming talks. Bye-bye.